super
Like the
super
new
popular.
vaccine, is that CRISPR-Cas9 how they did it?
No,
They're making
no,
us more compliant. They're forcing government compliance.
yes, they're implanting Bill Gates
What's the deal? Is that
microchips
safe,
into our
Wes? Can we all
DNA.
take the mRNA vaccine? Is that safe?
I took it. Yeah, I got it. And it's
Yeah,
great.
but it works.
Yeah,
No
Bill Gates
coronavirus
is
sense.
telling me to say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
standing
you're
right
chipped
out to me
now.
right
You
now.
might be chipped now. How do you feel?
I'm transmitting 5G. I'm a 5G tower.
Yeah,
You're a 5G
Turning
node.
us all
that
into
might be a
5G
bonus.
towers.
If that was the side effect, I'm in. We need more 5G towers.
I
That's
am
how it
showing
works.
you that was actually like my mom sent me this link and she's like, "Oh my God, did you see this?" And it's like this woman, she's like, "I'm an OB-GYN at the hospital, blah blah blah." All her like records and stuff. And then she says, "If you take this vaccine, the metals in the vaccine will turn you into a radio tower for 5G." And I was like, "Okay, like that's enough."
But
Like
somebody with credentials said this?
someone supposedly, I don't know if they actually had credentials. They just went on there and said what they wanted to say. So maybe they did, but maybe they did. There's
They could have
plenty of
lied about their
doctors who
expert.
do stupid shit, So it's like it happens, but it's
So you're
really,
telling me if I get the vaccine, I'll have better cell reception.
you'll have wherever
Dude.
you go, you go
Yeah,
outside
because
a
I'm bringing it
cave
with
and you'll
me.
have it.
Yeah.
They should have started with that. That's how they
Yeah.
should sell the vaccine. I mean,
That would've
listen,
been the-
secondarily, it'll solve your COVID problem. But primarily, your cell reception will be outstanding.
Yeah,
I would take that. Imagine going into AT&T, they're like, "Oh, do you want to upgrade to 5G?" You go, "Yeah," and they just stab something in your arm.
Do you actually know the function? Like, because they keep calling this like the mRNA vaccine and all that. What does that mean, and why
I'll
is that
tell you
different
all
than
the
other
deets.
different
Woo.
vaccines?
I
I'm
think
really
it's
curious
one of the most
about this.
exciting things in science right now.
Yeah, I want to
boom.
know. This is good.
So basically, yeah, mRNA vaccine. It's just the mRNA. So what they did was previous vaccines, they used to just take a virus, like kill it or affect it in some way so it couldn't infect you as well, and then inject that straight up into you, and then your immune system takes over. For the mRNA vaccine, we know the sequence of the proteins on the surface of COVID. We know we can take that sequence, make mRNA, and inject that.
What is mRNA?
Okay, so mRNA is it's called messenger RNA. That's what the M stands for.
Mm-hmm.
It encodes a protein. So basically, once that gets into a cell's cytoplasm, the ribosome will hook up to it and start making protein off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, what we're doing is telling your muscle cells, your own muscle cells, to express this viral protein. And that viral protein is what the immune system recognizes in order to be able to create antibodies against COVID. And so how it works is that, so it sounds so simple, but people have been working on this thing for decades. But they have to package the mRNA in basically a liposome, which is something that it's like this kind of fatty like layer, kind of like a cell, like has a lipid like layer. They basically coat it in this kind of fatty layer that allows it to pass into your muscle cells where they inject it, like at the site of injection. And once it gets into the muscle cells, the mRNA is released. It makes the protein. Then your cell has a way of, its natural immune system is able to take proteins that it doesn't really recognize, and it chops them up into pieces basically and presents them on the surface of the cell. And it's basically like a little flag that's saying, "Hey, immune system, I got something weird here. Can you come check it out? Is this bad?" And then that's when your T cells come over and are like, "Huh, this is your own proteins. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, calm down." Or like, "This is foreign. What the fuck?" And then it like activates the immune system. It'll like it'll go activate B cells and make antibodies. It'll, you get the whole activation cascade of the immune system. So basically, we're getting your muscle cells to produce the viral protein, present it to T cells, and activate the immune system.
So why can't we just do the dead COVID cells? Why can't we use that old method?
And I think one of the vaccines is based off of that. One of them, like in China or something like that.
No, we don't want that one.
But I mean, yeah, like that's the go-to. That's like what we have, used for a lot of our vaccine. Most of our vaccines is like live attenuated or dead virus vaccines.
Hmm.
The problem is it just like sometimes doesn't work. Like it depends on the virus.
Yeah.
It differs so much between virus to virus or bacteria to
Hmm.
bacteria.
Okay,
Um,
wait. Let me see if I conceptually understand this mRNA thing. So
mhm.
it's basically you send a package of code to the muscle cells,
Yep.
and the muscle cells run this code, which produces these foreign proteins that
Mhm.
are basically identical in nature to the proteins that the coronavirus has.
Yep.
And then so your muscle cells basically is like doing the creation of the virus,
Yeah.
and it goes,
Protein production
and
from the
then
factory.
and then it goes, I don't know what to do with this. Boom, sends it out into the ecosystem of your body, and then the ecosystem of your body comes in and says, oh shit, we got to do something to protect against this, and now you have immunity.
So it's not exactly like shooting it out into your system. It's like the T cells. T cells like run around your cells and they're checking on things, making sure everything's okay. And so the muscle cells that made this protein and are presenting it on the
Hmm.
surface tell the T cells. Basically, the T cells recognize that as foreign, and that'll activate the immune system. And
Wow,
then everything
this seems like the
happens.
coolest technology. Why? Like, this is
It's really cool
way more
because
interesting than I thought it was.
yeah, it's like it sounds so simple. It's like, oh, just make the protein like in your body. It's like so much more difficult than that because mRNA, first of all, is like super unstable. It degrades like if you look at it funny.
Hmm.
So that's why like you hear about the storage and stuff. They're like, oh, this one's cool because you can store it at like in a refrigerator for a week and it won't degrade. It's like
Hmm.
okay, so it's like cheese or something.
Yeah.
But that's great because normally it's not that stable. What they had to do to the mRNA to make it a little bit more stable is add some modifications to it so that it doesn't just get chewed up as soon as you inject it. And, to make
And
it
that's
more
part of
shelf
that
stable.
fatty layer on the outside. Is that
That's
that helps like make it
that's more for
not break up
transmission.
into
Yeah,
this?
that's to
Yeah,
help it get into cells because
yeah,
mRNA itself is a very charged molecule, and
yeah.
charged molecules don't go through cells normally unless there's a specific transporter for it, which there isn't. So you
Hmm.
have to coat it in a kind of a fatty bubble
Hmm.
to get it into cells.
Like when you give your dog medicine and you put it in a little bit of
A
butter or
little
peanut
peanut
butter.
butter, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah,
So we cover the mRNA with the peanut butter, and our muscles
just
like,
like
oh,
that.
dope, some
Yeah,
peanut
that's
butter.
that's what
Okay.
they use actually is peanut butter. So if you have a nut
See,
allergy,
it's
you can't get the
yeah.
vaccine. I'm sorry.
It's not that complicated. They just took some protein, they put it in some peanut butter, and they put it in. Yeah, that doesn't see. We're getting it.
Yeah.
So it feels like the tools you're developing would help to further this kind of technology. Is that right?
Uh,
Or no?
Maybe it's hard to say. Like right now, it's limited because the proteins that you produce, that's great for vaccines. It's like a perfect storm for vaccines because you
Hmm.
can produce the protein in a specific site, and then that gets presented. It gets chewed up, it gets presented, and then the immune system mounts its response. But you couldn't use it to produce like exogenous proteins really well
What's that? What's an
because
exogenous protein?
sorry like proteins that your cells normally don't express.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can't really use it to do that because, like I said, it gets chewed up, and then it gets presented. So that's part of the problem. And also, you're only expressing the protein in like muscle cells that got directly like injected into when they jabbed it into your arm. The rest of it, gets kind of interspersed. It might get into the bloodstream, but and what eventually happens is it like just goes into the liver or the spleen and gets like degraded there. It doesn't really go anywhere else. So that's why it's kind of like you can't like express a protein in any like tissue that you want. This kind of system. It's more just like where you inject it, it'll get expressed there for a while, and then it'll
But
like
as long as it's expressed somewhere, your body develops the antibodies in
because
this
it's for a
particular case.
vaccine, it doesn't matter. Yeah, get
Yeah.
it. If
Hmm.
the muscle, it makes it so easy because that's where you inject things anyway. Just inject it there in the muscles. The muscle will produce the protein for you, and then
Hmm.
that's what you need. But if you wanted to say like create a protein, like gene therapy. What gene therapy is you try to produce a protein that maybe your disease cells don't produce.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use this method because it's not going to really get you the tissue you want. Like if you're trying to treat cystic fibrosis, and you just have to express the correct protein that people with cystic fibrosis don't express, you couldn't really do that because the mRNA is not going to get to the lung cells that need to produce the protein. So it's got its limitations there. But for mRNA for vaccines, this is like super cool because it's easy as hell to do. Like I could make the
Mm-hmm.
mRNA myself. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I had the code for the
Is that what you
protein
did for your
protein,
vaccine? Did
I
you
could just go
homebrew
make
one?
it in lab right now. Like anybody can
Mm-hmm.
do it. Everyone has like a mRNA transcription kit in their like freezer somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you could transcribe the mRNA for whatever disease, like whatever virus or bacteria or whatever, to produce the protein, the surface protein that the antibodies would bind to, and then
Mm-hmm.
inject it, and then you should be able to get an immune response, hopefully, from it. That's the hopeful, that's like the very optimistic view. But then, like you mentioned earlier, why don't we just do live attenuated virus vaccines or
Mm-hmm.
dead virus vaccines all the time? It's because they don't work, and the mRNA vaccine might not work for some viruses.
Mm-hmm.
For COVID, it obviously does, but for some viruses, maybe it won't. And that's because the immune system has to get sufficiently activated in order to actually mount a response. And why the dead virus vaccine doesn't work is sometimes it just doesn't, your immune system doesn't get that activated. They're not that, triggered by it. They're just like, oh, okay, whatever. And
They're
then
not
they move
triggered. They
on
don't
their day.
care.
Yeah, not triggered. Yeah. And so you
So,
have to, there's so immunology is like ridiculously complex, and
Uh
like
mhm.
we're
huh.
learning more about it like every day. Um, but there's just so much that goes on in activating your T and B cells, that we're still like trying to learn about, and that's kind of the basic underpinnings of like how vaccines work, is activating those cells.